Half. Oh, it's in progress. Well, I love that background. Have you used that before?
I don't think so. It's just, the Alabama, the Zabriskie point pointing away from everybody else.
Me with all of my minions down on the front looking at Manly
All of your
Beacon.
followers looking, you move your tripod to go somewhere else and they rush to see who can put their tripod legs where yours were.
Oh, you're such an
The
idiot.
John Barclay, I want to shoot the shot he shot.
Now, generally, when they hear me, which they can hear me all the way down at Furnace Creek when I'm up at Zabriskie, they leave. They go to 20 Mule Team or somewhere else to be
Oh my
alone.
gosh. We're out there where the Borax Hills are out there. And we're sitting up here, three or four of us, and you're like 2 football fields away, and we can hear every word you're saying.
I gotta be mindful of that because I think I was saying mean things about you, wasn't I? I probably was. Hey, I woke up from the church and I'm now out looking at the water here in the Faroe Islands. And oh my God, Ray, point that. Look at it. It's the finger of God there.
Oh, I can't see it. You got to move. Where? Oh, the finger of light. Gotcha.
Isn't that cool? Looks just like a hand.
Yeah, cool.
Speaking of all these images in our background, let's talk today about another. I think this was a viewer question as well. How do you know, or when do you know that it's time to give up on an image? And if I had to guess, what they're asking about is an experience that I have more frequently than I want to admit. But have you ever found yourself working on an image in post? I don't think we're talking about giving up on an image in the field, because to me, that's a very different process. Working on an image in the field is a process, and I'm looking high, looking low, looking this way, that way, moving different lens, different focal length. I'm doing all I can do to capture that moment the way it feels right in the field. I think the question is really asking, now I've got it into post-processing and I'm working on it, and it's an hour and a half later. I generally know I don't think this is going to work, right? But let's put a little more meat on that bone. So go ahead, give your thoughts. Do you have that experience when you're working on something and then all of a sudden you go, okay, this is not going to work? And what's that
Let's
moment?
start with you and your experience. You say, how long do you work on it till you say, for you, I would say 5 minutes, and you can pretty well say, this isn't going to work.
Do mine look pretty much like they've never had more than 5 minutes? Is that what you're saying?
Okay, I think we are talking about post-processing, and sometimes we are so wrapped up in the experience of being there, and this image is reminding us, and we know what we want it to look like, but it's not there. And in the past, I've really published some images that just weren't there, but I didn't want to give up on them, and I hoped maybe nobody would notice their deficiencies. And now I've gotten much better. We came home from the Faroes. I went through my first pass, and I had, I think, 31 or 32 32 images. I just finished my fifth pass, and I know I'm done when I can go through all of them and I don't make any additional changes.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And that's when I know they're done. And I'm going to go through it one more time, but it got rid of about 5 images that just, being honest, I wanted them to work. They just weren't there. And it's really hard to be honest with yourself and to detach yourself. And that's why I do that laying to rest period.
Yeah, go through that again, because we might have new viewers. I think that's worthy. So what's your process so you got those 32 out of thousands, by the way, everybody, that's a good point to make here. A lot of people think that professional photographers, every trip of the shutter is a great photograph. We're no different than anybody else. 1,000 to 1 ratio is what we talked about in the previous, and maybe it's a little higher than that, but in a previous show. But the reality is we make a lot of photographs that just never work. Yeah. So we're talking about, you're down to those 32. So you are now on those 32. Have you worked on those a little bit, or?
Yeah. I go through them and I work on them.
Okay.
Do the first pass, let them sit for, say, a week.
Wow. So you just work on them, say, I'm going to do, don't even look at them again, nothing.
So the value is when I come back a week later, I'm seeing them almost anew.
Yeah.
I have a fresh eye. I'm detached enough. I can say, I was dreaming on that one. I want it to work, but it didn't.
Okay.
And then I let them sit for another week or 3 or 4 days, enough time to detach yourself emotionally from the image and see it maybe as though it were someone sending, like you sending me an image and having me look at it. I'm detached more for some reason.
Sure.
And then after the 5th time, like I say, I'm getting to where I've made very few tweaks. I'll do it one more time. And if I'll probably ask myself one more time, I'm down to, I think, 27 or something. And I'll ask myself, try to be honest, are all these necessary? Are they needed? And that means in my portfolio of Faroe Island images, because I've been, this is my 3rd trip. And so I've got a lot of images. And I have to ask myself, does this image add something to the portfolio?
Sure.
Or is it redundant? Maybe I should get rid of an existing one and keep this one.
Mm-hmm.
And they can't all be 10s like we've discussed.
Right.
But like puzzle pieces, they're important to drawing the big picture of the Faroe Islands. So really just trying to detach myself, trying to be more honest with myself is how I decide when it's time to go.
It's interesting because I always teach and have for years that we need to be emotionally connected to make good photographs. And I still believe that. We need to be connected to that experience. That experience is paramount. And your connection to it is going to be coming through to the viewer. But I totally agree 100%. When we're having to make decisions about portfolios and images that we're going to show, we almost have to get rid of the emotional connection altogether. And now we need to look at them very pragmatically and saying what you're talking about. Is this a good enough image to stand on its own or be part of a collection of images that are trying to tell a story? But I want to add just a little bit, because I think the question might also be referring to this thought. How do you know? So that's whether it fits in a folio or not, but how do you know when you're working on an image? Like when you're working to get to those 32, here's my experience. And again, I can only speak for me. I'm going through and I go, oh, okay, and I work on that one. Yeah, that's fantastic. I love that image. Go find another. So the low-hanging fruit for me happens pretty quickly. The obvious winners. Then there's some where you realize, well, wait a minute. If I put a stronger black point, stronger white point, oh, shoot, there's a lot of possibility in that photograph. I kind of put it aside for a minute, and then I'll come back to those because they're going to need more work as far as processing. They're not going to be my normal 2.5 minutes. They're going to take more time than that, right? But then what happens to me on some of those more challenging ones, I'm working on them, I'm dodging, I'm burning, I'm putting a layer of this. I've got 8 layers. Finally, I mean, if I find myself trying to force it to be a winner, eventually, well, 10 years ago, I would have kept forcing it. I have to make this one. I have to make this one. Now I'm within 20 minutes or so. If I'm still trying to push things around to make that image a winner, it's like this little timer goes bing, and I go, this is ridiculous, John. And I literally, the Photoshop file, I throw it away. I don't keep anything I've done on that. I keep the raw file because I just never throw raw files away anyways. It's just too much effort. But I realize now, and it's taken me time to get to that point, that if I'm realizing I'm trying to force and make an image acceptable to post, it's probably not worthy.
Oh, that's a good point.
Much effort.
But listening to your process, maybe I'm hearing it wrong, but I think I work a little differently. Okay. When I look at my images and decide if they're going to live or die, I'm not thinking about how they're processed. I'm thinking about the composition.
Interesting.
Because if the composition's not there, it never proceeds further. I generally feel, as basic as my Photoshop skills are, I generally feel I can execute it if I've got that composition correct.
Okay.
Now, there's sometimes you can't, but most of the time I'm comfortable I can do that. So for me, it's more judging it by its composition and if it's worthy, that more than can I process it to make it look.
Yeah, you're right. We do come at it a little different. I think subconsciously I'm looking at the images first and foremost for, are they a worthy photograph? And to me, that includes composition. And then the next thing is, can I execute that vision for what I was feeling and what I was seeing and thinking about in the field as I'm clicking the shutter in post-processing?
Now we've got another topic, but maybe we should do this for the next one. How do I know I've got a good photograph?
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, let's do that. So let's wrap up here. I think we've answered the question that the viewer posed. I think well. So I would just want to I always like to put a little summary at the end if we can. I think what we're saying is two things now. One, evaluate your images for the story, for the composition that you're going to be present. Does it meet with what you feel a strong photograph should be? And if not, it's time to move on. And then from a processing standpoint, if you're trying to, work it, and you can't make it look anything close to what your vision is, it's maybe time to step away from that and move on.
And let me add a little thing.
Okay.
You need to learn to be honest with yourself. It's too easy to fool ourselves or to say, well, I think others would love it. Remember the story where I went to Great Britain to imitate the ghost of Auschwitz-Birkenau?
Yes.
And all that whole series of ghosts at the castles of England. And I'm thinking to myself, this isn't honest. It's not me. There's no passion. There's no vision. But then that little voice would say, yeah, but others might like it. Yeah. And I had to say, it doesn't matter what others might like. I don't love this series. It's gone. It's trash.
Being true to yourself.
Being honest with yourself. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Better word. Yeah. Being honest with yourself. Good. All righty. We'll see you in the next show in a couple of minutes.